When did you realize your parents were failing you? When I started getting excited about parent-teacher conferences. Not because my grades were good, they weren't, but because it was the only time all year my parents would sit in the same room and focus on me for 15 whole minutes. I'd fail tests on purpose just to guarantee they'd both show up. Mom would cancel her yoga class, Dad would leave work early, and for once, they wouldn't be checking their phones or talking over each other about the divorce proceedings. Mrs. Beckett would pull out my report card, and I'd watch my parents' faces change from annoyance to concern to that familiar look of disappointment. But at least they were looking at me. Charlie's been acting out, Mrs. Beckett would say. Starting fights, not turning in homework, disrupting class. My parents would nod seriously, taking notes like responsible adults, promising consequences, and family meetings that never happened. The other kids dreaded these conferences. They'd stress about explaining bad grades or disciplinary issues. They'd beg their parents not to embarrass them. I'd count down the days like Christmas morning. At home, it was different. Mom lived in the guest room now, working late every night on her laptop, planning her escape to Portland where her sister lived. Dad slept on the couch, surrounded by empty beer bottles and legal documents he never seemed to actually read. They communicated through me. Tell your father, dinner's in the fridge. Ask your mother if she's picking you up Thursday. I became a human text message, carrying their anger back and forth while they pretended I couldn't feel it poisoning the air. The worst part wasn't the silence or the anger. It was that I'd started failing on purpose just to make them care. I'd pick fights with kids twice my size, knowing the principal would call home. I'd forge their signatures on failing tests, knowing eventually they'd find out. Anything to make them remember I existed. The breaking point came during my 8th grade conference. Mrs. Beckett had called them in because I'd been caught cheating, copying entire assignments from other students, turning in blank tests, falling asleep in class. For once, they both arrived on time. Dad in his rumpled work shirt, Mom in that new dress she'd bought for job interview. They sat on opposite sides of me like bookends, close enough to touch, but careful not to. Mrs. Beckett spread my work across the desk. Charlie's grades have dropped significantly. He's failing 4 classes. But what concerns me more is that he seems to be failing intentionally. She pulled out an essay I'd written for English class. The assignment was, describe your family. I turned in a single sentence. My family is like a house with all the lights off. My parents stared at that paper for what felt like forever. Mom's face crumpled first, then Dad's. Mrs. Beckett looked between them, understanding something I didn't quite grasp yet. When was the last time you two had dinner together as a family? She asked gently. They couldn't answer. Neither could I. Charlie's not acting out for attention, Mrs. Beckett continued. He's trying to create the family moments that should already exist. He's manufacturing crises because it's the only time you're both present. That's when Dad broke. Jesus, Charlie, we didn't know. We thought you were handling this better than us. Mom reached across me to touch his hand. The first time I'd seen them make contact in months. He shouldn't have to handle anything. He's 13, Mrs. Beckett nodded. Children shouldn't have to fail just to feel seen by their parents. Driving home that night, all 3 of us in the same car for the first time since the separation. Dad pulled into our driveway, but didn't turn off the engine. We're going to fix this, Mom said, turning around to face me. Not the marriage, that's over, but we're going to fix this. Dad nodded. You shouldn't have to set yourself on fire just to get our attention. That was 6 years ago. They never got back together, but they learned to be parents again. Real ones. The kind who show up without needing a crisis first. Now when people ask about my worst year, I tell them it was 8th grade. Not because of the divorce, but because I finally realized other kids didn't have to fail just to feel loved.